Britain in 1976 smelled of cigarette smoke, chip fat, and brute aftershave. The cars had no airbags, the schools had no counsellors, and the pubs had no ID checks. And nobody, not a single person in the entire country, had ever heard the phrase health and safety risk assessment. I have got 15 things in this video that were completely normal in 1970s Britain that would get someone arrested, sacked, or reported today. Some of them were dangerous, while others were just how life worked. A few of them you have never told your children about. And at the end of this video, you will get to relive these memories again. Now, before we dive in, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. The playground, the witch's hat, the metal roundabout, the plank swing with chains that pinched your fingers. All metal, bolted to concrete or packed earth. The roundabout was spun by hand until someone fell off or was sick. The seesaw was a plank on a metal fulcrum. If the child on the other end jumped off, you came down on your tailbone from 4 feet. The slide burned your legs in summer and froze you in winter. The climbing frame stood 10 to 12 feet high over concrete. Every council estate park and every school had these. Your mum put Germaline on it and sent you back out. If you could get to the top bar, you were accepted. If you fell off and cried, you were mocked until Tuesday. Rubber surfacing became standard in the 1990s. The metal was removed, sometimes overnight. They were replaced by molded plastic in primary colors, low to the ground. A generation of children grew up with bruises and stories. The next grew up with helmets and none. Buying fireworks from the corner shop. Standard fireworks, Brocks, sold loose or in a selection box from the newsagent. Bangers wrapped in blue paper. Jumping jacks that leapt off the ground. Air bombs that fired upward with a bang. A selection box for around £1.50. A rocket, a Catherine wheel, a Roman candle, a traffic light, and a packet of sparklers, displayed behind the counter next to the gobstoppers. The smell of gunpowder and cardboard. Children bought them for weeks before bonfire night. Bangers were thrown in playgrounds. They were posted through letterboxes. Milk bottles used as rocket launchers on the 5th of November. Every bonfire night, somebody's dad nearly lost an eyebrow, and the whole street watched from behind the fence. The Fireworks Act 2003 restricted sale to licensed dealers only. An 8-year-old walking into a newsagent and buying a box of explosives would now make the evening news. Page 3. And everything that went with it. The Sun newspaper, November 1970. Page 3 of a national daily newspaper began featuring topless women, not in a sealed magazine on the top shelf. On page 3 of the paper, your dad read at the breakfast table, on the counter at the newsagent, on the seat of the bus, pinned to the wall in every garage, workshop, building site, and factory floor in Britain. The calendar in the staff room, the calendar behind the bar, the calendar in the barber shop. Women walked past these images every day, in every workplace, without the language or the framework to object. Or if they did object, they were told it was just a bit of fun. A bit of fun was the rubber stamp that approved everything. Your boss could comment on what you were wearing. A slap on the backside in the office was not harassment. It was Wednesday. The typing pool, the nickname love, the interview question about whether you plan to have children. All of it, openly, routinely, with a wink. The No More Page 3 campaign did not begin until 2012. The Sun quietly dropped regular topless images in 2015. It took 45 years. A generation of women went to work every morning in a country that thought a topless woman on the 3rd page of a family newspaper was perfectly normal. Because it was. No seatbelts in the back of the car. Ford Cortina, Morris Marina, Austin Maxi. Children loose on the vinyl seat, sliding on every corner. 3 across, sometimes 4. sometimes 5 with one on a lap. On long motorway drives, children lay across the parcel shelf. In estate cars, children sat in the boot facing backwards. No child seats. Babies held in arms on the front passenger seat, the ashtray open, dad smoking at the wheel. Wearing rear seatbelts did not become compulsory until 1983. Hold on was the only safety instruction ever issued. Today, 4 children rolling around in the back of a Hillman Hunter at 70 on the M1 would be a safeguarding matter. In 1976, it was Tuesday. Corporal punishment at school. The cane. The slipper. The ruler across the knuckles. The board rubber thrown across the classroom. The cane was thin, flexible, usually rattan. You were told to hold out your hand, palm up. The sound it made was sharp and flat. The mark was a raised red line that stayed for hours. The slipper was a plimsoll, applied across the backside in front of everyone. Every school had a teacher the children feared. The walk to the headmaster's office. The queue outside. You knew who had been caned because they held their hands under their armpits at break. Nobody told their parents. Or if they did, the response was usually, well, you must have deserved it. Banned in state schools in 1986. Private schools kept it until 1998. A teacher striking a child today would face criminal charges and national media coverage. In 1975, it was called discipline. The pub at 15. The legal drinking age in Britain was 18. It was 18 in the 70s, and it is 18 now. What changed was not the law. It was the enforcement, or rather, the complete absence of it. If the landlord knew your dad, you were in. If you were tall for your age, you were in. If nobody behind the bar particularly cared, and in 1976 very few of them did, you were in. A 15-year-old sitting in the corner of the saloon bar with half a lager was not a crisis. It was a Saturday. Your dad might have brought you. He might have been at the other end of the bar playing dominoes. The first time many men of that generation got drunk, they did it in full view of their father, who handed them their coat at closing time and walked them home. Nobody called it irresponsible. They called it learning. The lock-in after hours. The landlord bolting the door and pulling the curtains. Everyone still inside pretending the pub was closed, while the drinks kept coming. The challenge. 25 policy, where staff ask for identification if a customer looks under 25, did not arrive until 2005. In the 1970s, identification meant your face, and your face was enough. Hitchhiking. Thumbing a lift on the slip road with a rucksack on your back. A hand-drawn sign on a bit of cardboard. Sixth formers hitched to the next town on a Friday night. Students hitched to university at the start of term with everything they owned in one bag. You climbed into a stranger's car, said where you were going, and rode for 50 miles. Sometimes a lorry driver on the A1, sometimes a sales representative in a Rover. You were dropped at a junction and waited for the next one. It was not considered dangerous. It was considered resourceful. Parents had done it in their youth and expected nothing less. Someone has a car. Someone needs a ride. No single law banned it. Fear did. By the late 1980s, a string of high-profile cases made hitchhiking synonymous with danger. The people who had hitched safely for 20 years were told they had been lucky. The slip roads are empty now. The cardboard signs are gone. Getting into the disco at 15, the Mecca Ballroom, the Locarno, the Top Rank, the local social club with a disc jockey on a Friday night, platform shoes, wide collars, too much Brute or too much Charlie perfume, and not a single person on the door checking a single thing. If you looked old enough, you were old enough. Girls in halter tops and flares, boys with feathered hair trying to look like they had been shaving for years. The music was loud, the lights were low, The slow dance at the end of the night was the entire point. Arms around a stranger's neck at 11:30. A walk home afterwards through streets that were either completely safe or completely not, depending on who you ask. The drinks were cheap and nobody counted. Snakebite and black, Pernod and lemonade. Things that tasted like sweets and hit like a wall. 15-year-olds standing at the bar in shoes borrowed from an older sister, ordering drinks without a flicker of suspicion from the barman. If you got home before your parents went to bed, you were fine. If you didn't, the story the next morning had better be good. A 15-year-old in a nightclub today would be a safeguarding incident. In 1977, it was called Friday. The paper round, up at 6. A canvas bag over your shoulder weighing more than you did. The Daily Mirror, the Sun, the Express. Stuffed through letterboxes that bit your fingers in the dark. Freezing mornings in January. Ice on the pavement. Paid around £1.50 to £2 a week. That was your first money. Your own money. You bought your own records, your own sweets, your own shoot magazine. Nobody gave it to you. You earned it before breakfast. It was a class marker too. If you did a paper round, your family needed you to. And you were proud of it, even when the bag strap cut into your collarbone at 6:30 in the dark. Today, the average weekly pocket money for a British child is around £7. In 1975, you got £1.50 and you earned it in the rain. Many newsagents simply stopped offering rounds. The 13-year-old in the dark with a bag full of newsprint is a memory now, not a job description. Smoking everywhere. Not a product on this list. A behaviour. The office, ashtrays on every desk. The upper deck of the bus, thick with it. The cinema, smoke curling through the projector beam. The pub, yellow ceilings, yellow curtains, yellow fingers on the pint glass. The hospital waiting room. Your GP smoking behind his desk while he told you to cut down. School staff rooms where teachers emerged stinking of Lambert and Butler. Restaurants asking smoking or non-smoking as if a velvet rope could stop particulate matter. It was not tolerated. It was the default. Non-smokers were the awkward ones, waving their hands, asked to move. A house without an ashtray was considered unprepared for guests. The Health Act 2006 banned smoking in all enclosed public spaces in England. Overnight, the pub smelled different. Ask anyone over 60 what a pub smelled like in 1977. They will close their eyes for a second before they answer. Drink driving, not a product either. A culture. The 2-pint lunch. The drive home from the pub on a Friday. The works Christmas party and the car park afterwards. Your dad drove home from the social club every Saturday and parked the car 6 inches from the curb and called it skill. This was not hidden. It was open and completely normal. The breathalyzer existed from 1967, but enforcement was patchy. Saying he can handle his drink was a compliment, not a warning. Successive campaigns changed the culture more than the law did. Remember the Christmas advert with the crashing glass? Drink driving became shameful. That shame saved thousands of lives. This is one of the few items on this list where the past was not smarter. It was lethal, but it was ordinary. That is the part that shocks people now. The television shutting down. After the late film, or the open university lecture with the bearded man and the overhead projector, the continuity announcer said, "Good night." The national anthem played. The test card appeared. A girl with a clown doll. Test card F, known to every person in this country over the age of 50. A high-pitched tone followed. Static. And then nothing. A white dot shrinking to the center of the screen. Television was over. It did not come back until the morning. People went to bed because there was nothing left to watch. Children who stayed up late enough to see the closedown felt they had witnessed something forbidden. The national anthem at the end of the night was the last sound in millions of British households. 24-hour broadcasting arrived in the late 1980s. The idea that a screen could go dark, that content could simply end, is as alien to a teenager today as a mangle. No central heating. The one-bar electric fire. The paraffin heater in the hallway. In 1970, fewer than 30% of British homes had central heating. By 1980, it was still only around 55%. Bedrooms in winter had ice on the inside of the windows. Actual ice on the single glazed glass. You scraped patterns in it with your fingernail. The lino floor was so cold it hurt your bare feet. You dressed under the blankets. The hot water bottle was rubber, filled from the kettle, stoppered and wrapped in a towel. If the stopper leaked, the bed was scalding wet. Getting into a cold bed was a nightly act of courage. Getting out of a warm one was worse. Families lived in one room in winter, the front room with the fire. Shut that door, you are letting the heat out. That sentence was said more often in British homes than good morning. Central heating became standard through the 80s and 90s. British gas combi boilers, radiators in every room. The generation that grew up scraping ice off the bedroom window now keeps the thermostat at 21 and still feels the cold. The house was freezing. The school could hit you. The telly stopped at midnight. None of that mattered, because the moment you stepped outside, you had something no child will ever have again. Your bike. The rally grifter. The chopper. The hand-me-down racer, with no brakes worth mentioning. No helmet. No adult. You were 8, maybe 9. Playing cards pegged to the spokes with clothes pegs. With your hands off the handlebars as you went down the hill. Knees permanently grazed from June to September. The bike was freedom. Not a metaphor. Literal freedom. It doubled your range overnight. You could reach the next village, the reservoir, the woods, the waste ground by the canal. Nobody asked where you were going. Nobody checked. You left on the bike and came back on the bike. The only question was whether you were home before tea. A 9-year-old cycling alone on a B road today would prompt a phone call. In 1976, it prompted nothing except a shout to watch out for lorries. The bike took you somewhere. This last one is about what happened when you found someone there. It is the thing nobody talks about, but everybody remembers. Meeting someone. Before the mobile phone, before the internet, before any of it. You met them at the youth club, or the bus stop, or the school disco, or the chip shop on a Friday. There was no profile to check, no photograph to study in advance, no message to craft and delete and recraft. You saw them. They saw you. Someone said something or nobody did, and you stood near each other until the silence became a conversation. If you wanted to see them again, you gave them your home telephone number, written in biro on the back of a bus ticket. Then you went home. And you waited. The phone was in the hallway. It was attached to the wall. When it rang, everyone heard it. Your dad might answer. Your mum might answer. Your little brother might answer and say something that made you want to disappear. There was no way to know who was calling. You just had to pick it up and hope. If they called, the conversation lasted as long as the cord would stretch into the kitchen and no longer than your dad's patience. If they did not call, they did not call. There was no way to chase it. No text to send, no status to check. You simply did not hear from them, and after a few days, you understood. The rejection was silent, but it was complete. And if it did work, you made a plan. Meet me outside Woolworths at 2 o'clock on Saturday. That was it. No confirmation text. No running update on their location. You turned up and stood there, and either they came or they did not. And when they came around the corner and you saw them and they saw you, that feeling, that exact feeling, is something no notification on Earth will ever reproduce. Courtship in the 70s was not romantic because people were more romantic. It was romantic because there was no shortcut. You had to show up. You had to wait. You had to not know. And the not knowing is where all the feeling lived. The streetlights still come on at the same time. The pubs still open. The discos have different names now. But the feeling of standing outside Woolworths at 2 o'clock, not knowing if they will come, is gone. Not because the people changed, because the waiting did. Subscribe to the channel and watch the next video to keep these stories alive.